Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I'm delighted to bring back a guest who was very popular the last time, and I know will be popular this time. We're going to go deeper into her story. It's an extraordinary story. So, Mildred Talabi, welcome back to the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And we cannot wait to hear this story that is just incredible, I think, and it will be very inspiring for a lot of women.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for inviting me back, Joy. Yes, I do hope that it will help somebody, me sharing my story today, which is why I'm here.
So, you had a brain tumor diagnosis. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is September 2023. So 4 years ago this month is when I had a brain tumor where I ended up spending the whole entire month of September in hospital, preparing for the surgery and then recovering from the surgery. So it just how it just happened. It's one of these things that just came out of nowhere, seemingly. Even to this day, my doctors are not sure what the cause was or whatever it was, but I kind of woke up one day and everything was fine, but sort of in the middle of the day, through the day, I had this like incredible pain on the back of my neck and my head. And it was just like in this area here, and it was just throbbing like really, really bad. And I was like, what is this? Did I like sleep with my neck upside down or something? But I'm thinking if that was the case, then it would have started hurting straight away from when I woke up, and it didn't. This just kind of came on me. So I did the usuals. I took some pills, hoped that it would go away. And it didn't. It didn't go away that day. It didn't go away the day after. It didn't go away the day after. It just persisted every single day, literally for months on end. And I tried everything. I went to doctors several times, A&E several times. They put me on all kinds of pills, but nothing was helping. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I just need to do something different. So I went to see an osteopath, and did all the neck cracking. And for a little while, it gave me some temporary relief, but it didn't last for too long because that pain was still just there constantly.
And
Yeah,
they never scanned your head.
they never scanned my head. What they ended up doing was they said, okay, because they tested everything else. Is it your eyes? Is it this? I'm like, it's not my eyes. I can see. And then they were like, okay, we're going to refer you to the neurologist. Now, this was May that this started happening, mid-May, and my
Wow.
appointment was in November. So yeah, I do love the NHS. I've been through it, so I love them. But that was literally, it was on like a 5 month wait for me to see a neurologist. In the meantime, it was like, drugs and whatever. And I'm not a big fan of taking loads of pills, so I couldn't cope with that anyway. But so after a while of this happening, and one day I was driving to work because at the time I wasn't fully self-employed. I was working for an organization. I was on the way to work, driving down the motorway, and then there was some country roads I had to go down. And all I just remember was everything was a blur. I'm driving and the cars are passing, and I could only see them after they'd gone. I'm like, what is going on with me? Long story short, ended up in the car park at work, outside work, collapsed. I had called one of my colleagues, somehow called an ambulance, and they found me like with vomit all over the place, hanging out my car in the car park. And then I woke up in an ambulance.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, and that was how the first hospital I went to was like, okay, we can see that there's something here. We don't know exactly what it is. We're gonna take you to St. George's Hospital because they're specialists with like head stuff. So they took me in another ambulance to St. George's, and that's when I got there. And my husband arrived at the time. They were like, I'm sorry to tell you, but we found a brain tumor, in your head.
Mm.
So you can't go home. And that was it. That was my whole month of September gone, 4 years ago.
Well, and not only that, but it was a whole year of pain, and because you had that headache, and you were. I mean, it's not just the month of September, but
Yeah.
it's a whole year that you're dealing with it that you don't have a resolution on it as well. So what
Yeah.
happened next?
Yes, yeah. So that was it. So like when they said what it was, that it was a tumor, I think that my biggest thing that I felt was relief, because as you said, and I've just said, it's like I was literally living in pain for months before then. and I would not wish that kind of pain on my worst enemies if I had one, but it was really awful. So it was like, okay, now
I
I
love how
know.
you said, "If I had one."
If I don't do enemies,
Nobody
right?
doesn't do enemies.
I don't do haters. I don't do enemies. I love people. We're all good. you know.
I love
So
that. That's a
yeah,
great philosophy to live by. I don't do enemies.
absolutely. But yeah, so it was like first it was relief and then it was shock because I'd never known anybody in real life who'd ever had a brain tumor. It's not something that you hear that's common. So I'm like, what is this? How do I deal with this? What's all this about? So I ended up at the time, I really remember like one of the things that my oldest daughter was about to start school literally that week. And we had all these plans of like what we were gonna do and get her ready, do her hair. And I was there like, who's gonna do my daughter's hair for school? you know that was one of my big worries. Like I've just found out I got a brain tumor. I'm like, who's gonna do her hair? So but yeah, after that they were like, yeah, we have to keep you in. It took about a week, just a week and a half to prepare for the surgery. And this is getting me ready and then getting the right consultants in and doing all kinds of blood tests, was constantly hooked up to machines and all that kind of stuff. And then after it happened on the day of the surgery, it was a 6-hour surgery. They cut open the back of my head, removed the tumor, most of the tumor they removed through the surgery. I woke up in intensive care, spent 3 days in intensive care, recovering from that. And then the last couple of weeks in that hospital in that September was just kind of trying to get back to myself. Like one of the things that I could barely stand without falling over and blacking out, because the where it is at the back of my head, it's they were like, it was so close to like the spine that any bigger and any more to the right or whatever it was, then it could have really damaged my ability to walk. But I thank God where it was, they could take it out without any kind of repercussions on my health for long term. So yeah, so I was in the hospital. By this time, it's coming up to a month in hospital, and I was desperate to get home. But they were like, "You can't go until we know that you can function at least at a basic level." And that was really like, it was really hard for me. I cried a lot, obviously, for many reasons, but one of the hardest parts was that I've always been an independent person. I'm like, I'm up and gone, I'm doing things, I'm like a million miles an hour. And then it's like I had to stop everything, stay still, learn how to kind of use my legs again. It's like I'm telling my legs to walk and it's collapsing underneath me. And those kind of things is a real challenge. Even bath I couldn't do on my own. I had to have the nurses will take like an hour just to do a simple bath because I couldn't move properly. And this was like, that was initially in the hospital until eventually I begged them to let me go home, and the night before I was due to go home, I had like I was doing well. I hadn't like fainted for a while, blacked out. And then the night before I was due to go home, I tried to go toilet, I remember 3 times, and each time I blacked out and fainted in the corridor. And the nurses were like putting me back in. And I remember crying. I was like, they're not going to make me stay here longer, are you? Please, I need to go home. Because I was just like, it was a little bit of a break, to be honest, being in the hospital initially before the surgery, because I'm a busy mom of 2. My life is full on. So I was like, oh, I'm being fed 3 times a day. Someone else is taking care of everything, taking care of me. But then it got to the point where it's like, I want to get back to my life. And that was like, my body just was not responding the pace of my mind. And that was difficult initially. But we eventually ended up being able to go home. And then the recovery process took months and months after that to get back to the place of being able to walk again, and then eventually run and then drive, and all the things that I used to do and took for granted I could do again after about a year. So, and today I'm 100% clean and clear. So thank God.
Wow. Well, yeah, praise God. I think one of the things that's really interesting about this as well, I work primarily with women who've had a career break, also women who are wanting to switch careers, and also women who want to start business. But when we started out 8 years ago, it was to help women get their career back after a break. And the most common reason women left work was to raise children. But then, as I started doing this work, women were coming back from mental illness and physical illness, their own physical illness, their own mental illness. We had women coming back from taking care of elderly parents, taking care of children with disabilities, and it was much more. There's a lot more reasons out there why women's careers are impacted, not just kids. And this is a really good example of that. So how did you rebuild your career?
Yeah, it definitely it is. There was an impact. So at that point in my career, so a quick background. I've had, as you know, probably from the first time we spoke, my background's trained as a journalist, worked in the media and in comms, but I always had a business on the side. So I've saddled the world of employment and self-employment throughout my entire career.
The side
So
hustle.
I was a side hustler for sure, never fully being brave enough to kind of step out. But also, I did enjoy both worlds at one point. It was like, yeah, I can do this and I can do that. And it's all good. I love them both. So at this point, when I went into hospital, I had just started a new role. Well, I was a few weeks, maybe about a month into a new role, a contract role with an organization that I liked. And I was thinking of, the future in that role, that kind of thing. And then, well, obviously they had to let me go because I was a contractor and, I was like in hospital. So it was at the point that I was so glad I had my business to fall back on because,
That's
yeah.
really interesting what you just said. I want people to hear that because I talk to a lot of women. They're like, it's either or. It's not a
Mm,
yes and. It's like, I've either got to run my business or I've got to work for someone. And I keep
mhm.
saying, well, why can't it be a yes and? You know,
Yeah.
why can't I do this and this? It's possible to find employment that you enjoy and at the same time have a business on the side. And that employment that you enjoy can give you some stability while you
Mhm.
build your business up. And,
Yeah.
in times when your business isn't that stable, employment can really help, which, I mean, I did the same thing last year. I had in order to keep my company going, we went through a big rebuild.
Mhm.
I gave up my salary for a year, which was a big decision. But I then got two side hustles, but they were actually paid employment, two
Yeah.
paid employment jobs that sort of kept us on a, baseline going. And then the business rebuilt itself and I was able to let one of those jobs go and go back fully into the business. But I think that's a really interesting take that you were grateful that you had your business to fall back on.
Mhm.
So yeah, so talk to me more about that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm with you in the whole or I don't know exactly how you said it. You can
Yes
yes,
and.
and that's it. Yes, and being able to do both. But yeah, so having my business to fall back on when they turned around and said, we can't, we love you, you're great, but we can't, unfortunately. I was like, okay, at least I was grateful that my mind was still sharp enough to be able to do my business, because the business I had before the LinkedIn coaching, I was doing kind of CV makeovers for mid to senior level professionals, helping them write their LinkedIn profiles. So I was still sharp in my mind, even though my body wasn't like able to do certain things. So I was still able to do that, and I had the business to fall back on. But at that time, I was still in this place where I was deciding, do I fully go down like the work route, or do I go down the business route? I got to the point where I was like, I need to make a decision one
Yeah.
way or the other. And I didn't. So temporarily, while I was going through this recovery from the tumor, it was business because I couldn't work for anybody else for that time.
Yeah.
And then in that process, I actually realized that, you know what, it's now or never, to give this business the full go, like to actually go all in on this business. And that's when I pivoted, to use that cliched word, and changed to LinkedIn coaching, because one, it's like I'd spoken about CVs for about 13 years and I was done talking about CVs and job hunting,
You're over it.
So
But that's an
yeah.
important point though,
Mhm.
because I think, what I say to people is if your website's the same,
Mhm.
3 years later, if your product's the same, 3 years later, you're not evolving, something's
Mhm.
wrong. Like, actually, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to add new products. It's okay to let go of old products. It's okay to shift and do new things. And it's important to do it as well, because we don't want to get stale and stagnated. There's a part of us that wants to be freer, fuller, more expanded.
Mm.
And we do that by challenging ourselves to do new things, things we've never done before. So I love
Yeah.
that. So you said, okay, I'm done with CVs, enough of that. And then you leaned into LinkedIn coaching.
That's it. I leaned into it because I could see that there was so much more potential to LinkedIn than what I was doing at the time was just writing profiles. And I had been unintentionally building my personal brand on LinkedIn for years, and I was like, okay, what would happen if I got intentional about this now? So rather than something that I'm doing on the side, what about if I focused everything on it? And that's exactly what I did. So that beginning of January 2020, I went all in on LinkedIn. I bought every book you can think of about LinkedIn. I bought. I've been on courses, programs, went on a 30-day challenge that somebody was doing that challenged us to like post every single day for 30 days.
Well, and you've now posted every single day for how many days? Thousands.
For thousands, coming up to 4 years in January, every single weekday I've posted on LinkedIn. So yeah,
I know.
I was,
I cannot go onto LinkedIn and not see you. Well, obviously I follow you, but I love your stuff. But also it's like, oh my gosh, she has literally, because I do social media once a week, and that's it. I'm very happy with that. I have you know, built a very successful business off the back of that. Even if I had to rebuild my business, I still built a very successful business off the back of once a week. But I find it, I like to go and look at your stuff because I'm always like impressed that you come up with something every single day. And, that's, I don't know, the 1,200, 1,300 photos as well. Like, it's
oh my
incredible.
god, yeah, selfies.
So, but that has built your business, and you've built
It
a
has.
very, very successful business off the back of it.
It absolutely has, because, and this is how my whole message is about being visible, right? So being visible is being seen, being heard, being remembered. That's kind of how I break it down. So it's that whole thing of I'm constantly there, and this is and I'm glad that you said you do once a week and has built your business. There's many different ways to do things. You have to find what works for you, and sometimes you take trying a few different things and then you find, oh, this is my sweet spot. For me, posting every day is not a problem. It's second nature. It's just what I do. I post it, and I've done it for so long. It's like it's part of my routine. If I don't post, then there's a problem, because it's like, oh my god, I feel naked today. What happened? you know so yeah, so it's that whole thing of making it work for you. But I realized that there's so much more potential with LinkedIn that I could explore for myself, and then I can teach other women, in particular women, to do, because I really believe in this whole thing of showing up and taking center stage in our own lives. Like, you have to own it. No one is going to talk about how great you are. Well, people might do, but you have to kind of have a part in that process. You have to start being visible, start sharing the things that you know, start sharing what it is that you do. And in so doing, you're going to be able to increase your influence, your income, and your impact. Three things that I believe we all need to, kind of have a successful life, in a sense. So that's what I do now. And I absolutely love doing this work.
I love that. So increase your influence, increase your income, and therefore increase your impact.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
Yes.
there's a great book, I don't know if you've read it, by Rachel Rogers, called We Should All Be Millionaires.
Oh,
And
yes.
have you read it yet?
Oh, I've read it. It's on my special
Yeah,
shelf.
it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I like, as
Mhm.
I, she made the historical case,
Mhm.
not just for why women should have money and be millionaires, but also women from different backgrounds, particularly backgrounds that have not had the privilege that other backgrounds have had, and I think reading her book was amazing, because I think, number one, it gives you permission to go and be a
Mhm.
millionaire as a
Yeah.
woman. But number two, it's not just the permission, it's a requirement. If we want to change the world, we have to become financially, not just financially independent, but financially free, so that we can make the impact we want to make. And you don't get to make the impact that you want to make in this world
Mhm.
sometimes without having that financial backing. But you can't get the financial backing unless you've got the influence. So talk
Yeah.
us through those three steps and how you see them.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the same thing. It is that whole thing of, so influence. I think it's important, the ability to kind of shape other people's minds and opinions. If you want to make a change in the world, you have to be influential, and that comes from building your platform and building. I've been able to grow my audience to over 50,000 followers. I say that I've been able to because it's not like there's all that, and that's through just showing up. That's through showing up, that's through sharing content that's resonating with people. But that gives me influence because I can now speak about things that affect people's life positively. And that for me is really important in how I do business. I don't just want to have lived and made my money, have my house and die, and that's all I've done. It's kind of, I want to influence people. I want to have an impact. And like you, I believe that money is a key part of that. As women, we don't talk about money often enough, especially. We don't charge enough, as well. That's another thing that we don't do. We don't talk about income. But like you said, it's like you cannot make a difference significantly without that income. You can have the best heart in the world, but if you don't have the resource that is currency in this world, you can't do much. And people always say, oh, but Mother Teresa's campaigns were funded. Somebody paid for all the good that she did, even if it wasn't her directly. Somebody paid for that. So there, you can be Mother Teresa, but then you need to find yourself someone who's going to
You got to
fund
find
you.
a backer.
Go find a
Mother
backer.
Teresa had a backer.
Exactly.
Well, the reason I laugh so much about the women don't charge enough. So I'll tell a little backstory here. After the last time I interviewed Mildred on the podcast, I was like, "You're so amazing. We got to bring you in as a coach." And she told me her hourly rate, and I was like, "Well, we can't do that." and what I loved about it was you knew your value, and you said to me, look, this is my value and this is what I charge, and this is, I'm not going to adjust this. And actually for me, that was really wonderful to see someone stand in their power and say, I will do this, but I will do it at this rate. And it was just something we couldn't do at the time. And it would have impacted our business, across the board, because I would have had to change the rates for everybody else. But it was a really great opportunity to see a woman stand in her power and know that by saying no to me, for example, you were saying yes to someone that could pay you the rate that you wanted to be paid and the rate that you felt you deserved to get paid and do deserve to get paid. So it was a really great experience for me, and the good news is you don't harbor enemies. So
So here we are.
so we're still chatting. There's a few times in my life when I've seen women really stand in their power, and it's very impressive. And it's something that I think we don't see enough of. So I want to just say that was very special for me to get to see you stand in your power, and then to continue to watch you thrive. So what are some of your advice, I would say, for women who need to, stand in their own power and they're not yet doing that?
Yeah, it's and thank you for sharing that, but yeah, it is. I have to, and part of it is being authentic. I have to, I can't tell people to do things that I'm not willing to do myself. It doesn't work. So I'm constantly going with my clients. I'm like, you need to raise those prices. Like, why are you charging so much, so little? And often it's rooted in self-esteem, and all the messages that we've had. And but trust me, this is a journey I've been on for more than a decade. So this wasn't an overnight thing. If you had met me 6 years ago, I probably would have said, yes, thank you, ma'am, but I've gone on a journey, and I've been on a journey. I've got dozens of books and personal development, all kinds of stuff. So I think it's really important that as women, we invest in our own development, because you don't know what you don't know, and there's things out there, there's that's going to help you. But if you don't make that time and spend that money, even if it's 20 quid on a book, to read a book to change your mind about something, you're never going to be able to develop to your fullness and your full potential. So I really believe in that, in constantly developing personal development, putting boundaries in place. One of the things that's important to me is having boundaries around my work life. So I have margin. I've got two kids, and I love my girls. I want to be present, and I am present in their lives now, but it's some of that has meant implementing boundaries, like I don't do evening sessions, I don't do coaching in the evenings, weekends I don't work weekends unless I want to, but and that's only if I'm writing my newsletter or my blog or whatever kind of stuff. It's so I'm present, so I can also be a mom and a wife. I have a husband to take care of, so
Well, I can relate to that because we used to do evening coaching, and we pulled evening coaching once the COVID sort of sort of dropped off and people went back to sort of normal lives. We got rid of the evening coaching because actually the coaches wanted their evenings back. I wanted my evenings back.
Mm,
And, I can relate to the weekend working, but it's also by choice now if I work on the
yeah.
weekends. Whereas before, when I started my business, I worked all the time till, 2, 3, 4 in the morning on a regular basis. I don't do that anymore either. So
Yeah.
I do think that as you come into your power, there's certain things you start to shift. I was doing some training last night on time, and they were saying, well, if you want to know what your values are, all you have to do is look at your calendar, right? Like if you look at your calendar for the last month, did you put time into your health and well-being? Did you put time into your love and relationships? Did you put time into your vocation and creative expression? Did you put time into your time and money freedom? Like, what was your time freedom like? What was your money freedom like in the last month? And it was a great reflection because actually I went and I looked back at my last month, and I've had this extraordinary shift in the last couple months of having time freedom that I didn't have before, that's been created the way that I built my business. And I was able to go home and be with my mom. I have a biological mom who's got blood cancer. I was able to go home and be with her for like every
Mm,
day for 6 days for several hours at a time and get all the things in order that we needed to get in order. And I was able to go on a holiday with my family to the Lake District,
mm,
and we went to Beatrix Potter's house, and we did some lovely walks, and we went paddleboarding. And so I sort of look at the last month and I think, well, actually, I banked time in love and relationships, and and then and I did do work as well. And what I noticed when I was looking at my calendar was when I'm working, I work. I work, work,
mm.
work, work, work.
You go hard.
I go
Yeah.
hard. But actually, when I'm getting much better at like, no, I'm going to stop working and focus on these so I can separate the two. But I
Mhm.
did notice when I work hard. But I've also got a lot more evenings free now. I've got my weekends more free. The other thing that the time course that I was doing was saying was the other way we know our value set is where we spend our money. If you look at your last month of your bank statements, where am I spending my money? All like, am I spending on my kids? Am I spending it on, what do I value? Do I value and there's nothing wrong with it's just an indicator.
Yeah.
So where you spend your time, where you spend your money is an indicator of your value set. And actually our value set matters. And that's why you want to say, okay, well, if family matters to me, then how do I need to shift my money and my time so that my calendar reflects that, or health and
Yeah.
well-being, etc.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And the thing is that there's initially when you start putting these boundaries in place, sometimes there's this fear of, oh my God, but how am I gonna get this done or that done? But I've actually found the more you implement those boundaries and you have like these windows for work and you put the most important things before the work feels around it somehow. So two other key boundaries I've implemented in the last year. So like Wednesdays now I like me days is I don't talk to nobody, no meetings. Sometimes I go cinema on my own. I love it, by the way. So it's like if I want to go to a spa, I will go to a spa. Just whatever I want to do. It's a no agenda me day, just me hanging with myself. Oh my God, that refreshes me so much. You
And I
know,
love that you have
yeah,
that right in the middle of the week. So you got 2
yeah,
days you work in, have a day off, and then you got 2
mhm,
days, and then you've got the weekend with your family. Because that's the
yeah,
benefit of the Wednesdays when the kids are in school, if you have that
yeah,
ability to do that during the week.
yeah.
That's
Mhm.
one of the big things I was trying to do, uh, I was and I've successfully created it. I'm a few months away, but I've built it into the calendar where I have no meeting day, no appointment
Yeah.
day, no, it's a free day as well. And I haven't been
Hmm.
able to implement it as often as I would like, but I'm with you. That's the next step that for me as well. And what was the second boundary that you've created?
The
Or the
second one
third?
is, yeah, there's many, as you said, what matters to you. So my relationship is important to me. My marriage to my husband, we've just celebrated 16 years anniversary. So we have like Fridays. Fridays are our day, during the day when the kids are at school, because he's off on Fridays as well. So we both have Fridays. So no meetings on Fridays, no nothing, is husband and wife day, kind of thing. Whatever we want to do, if we want to go cinema together, if we want to go out and eat, we just want it, whatever. So it's like, so really I work 3 days a week.
Yeah, okay, so you've got
You
Monday,
know,
Tuesday,
Monday,
Thursday,
Tuesday, Thursday,
and
and
then
then
you've got
yeah,
Wednesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays
yeah,
for you, Fridays for you and your partner.
Fridays with me.
That is so cool. And you've built that because you built your business. You've got that flexibility, you've got the
Yeah.
income to do it.
And now, and I'm gonna correct that last bit with the income, because it was actually put in before the income came in.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very
Well,
important.
absolutely. This is before, because again, this is when I talk to women about putting boundaries. They're like, but I need to work. And the thing is, we think that the more we work, the more hours we feel, like the more we're getting stuff done. But you get to a point where you're no longer being productive. You're working 10, 15 hours a day, but your energy left 5 hours ago. So the last 5 hours worth of work that you're doing has not actually been productive at all. You were much better off just like having a cut-off time. I'm stopping here. I'm gonna go to sleep and recharge myself and start again tomorrow. So by putting those kind of boundaries in place. So before the income matched my hours, I was like, actually, what kind of work life do I want to have?
So
And
you
this is
implemented that in
I
advance.
implemented, and this is actually one of the benefits of the brain tumor experience, because it's while I was there, and because I was all go before that, all go. And it's like I had this whole month of like I couldn't go anywhere, literally. And then I had like 8 months after that of like recovering and getting back to my feet. And it's like I don't want to end up in hospital again for that to be a reason why I slow my schedule.
Right.
I wanna, and in that process of time, I had like I was going around, my neighbors like were coming. I used to go around some of my neighbors' house. They were helping me walk my kids to school because I couldn't go on my own, because I might faint or something. And I was able to go and have tea with neighbors and hang out with people and see. I was like, this is kind of nice, this is kind of nice. So how do I implement more of this when I don't have to, when I'm back fully on the go and
That
all of that?
And
You
that's a
know?
beautiful example. I was just teaching, we have a Mindset Monday every week in our community where I bring a point out and talk about it. And a lot of my Mindset Monday is inspired by the mentors that I have. And one of the mentors that I have, she and her husband had been going through marriage counseling, and they were really struggling. They'd gotten married as teenagers because they'd gotten pregnant as teenagers, and so it was really sort of not the partner you would necessarily choose, but it sort of happened that way.
Mhm.
And so they'd been together for a decade or more, and they were struggling in their marriage. They'd gone to marriage counseling, and the marriage counselor gave them a point, and the point was nothing is bad unless you say it's bad. Right?
Mhm.
Nothing is bad unless you say it's bad. So you can always find the good in something. And not long after they had this principle from the counselor, her husband lost his job. And he walked into the house and he was ashen faced and he was devastated. He lost his job. And she was still in a mindset of, this is bad, this is really bad. But then she remembered, he said, nothing, the counselor said, nothing's bad until you say it's bad. And so her husband said, well, if nothing's bad until we say it's bad, let's just put the pause on thinking it's bad. And what would be good? What could come out of this that would be good? And
Mhm.
he said, well, what would be good is I could find a job that's within 15 minutes from here that I could cycle my bike to,
Mhm.
so I don't have to drive to work. What would be good is if I could find a job that paid more and I worked less, hours. That would be good. All three of those things would be good. More pay, less hours, local commute. And she was sort of like, well, where are you going to find that? That's impossible. You're not going to find that. And how can you get more and work less? And so she was really in this mentality, but she thought, well, I'll go along with the experiment. Right. So the question they were asking themselves was an empowering question. How can I get a job that's in a local area that pays more and is fewer hours? And the next day, he took his CV and went to all the local businesses and said, "This is what I do. This is what I'm looking for." And within a week, he had a better paying job within a 15-minute commute with fewer hours. And that was the moment she realized that nothing is bad unless you say it's bad, that there is good in everything. So, I love that you shared that there was good in the brain tumor experience and that
Yeah.
there were some wonderful things. And actually, you know, when you have lost a part of your life due to health, that your health is so much more precious and important to you. And I remember reading the book Sleep by
I've got that. Yeah.
yeah, we probably read a lot of the same book,
Yeah.
Arianna Huffington. But what she said, which I thought was really interesting, was she collapsed at her desk and hit her head on her desk. And she'd been on a trip with her daughter to see all these campuses and everything. And I remember one of the things I love about books, and you obviously love books too. I read about a book a week, and I do it on Audible. But one of the things that I love about books is you get to experience someone else's experience without having to live it.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
the time, the reason I was reading the book Sleep was because I was working all night long and not sleeping. And when she told me her story about falling, hitting her head on the desk and then, have the setback she had with her career, I thought, well, I'm never letting that happen to me. And it was actually, and I could never finish the book Sleep because I would listen to it and fall asleep. But I will say the stats she gave on the importance
Yeah.
of sleep changed the way I look at sleep, and it completely reversed my issues with sleep. And I get probably 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and I have done for several years. But that was a real battle for me 8 years ago. That was a real battle for me. So I think these stories are so important. So are you going to write a book about all of this? A new
I,
book?
I am actually working on book number 5, but it's nothing to do with this. It's about how to build a visible and profitable business. That's so maybe some of the principles will come into rest and boundaries and all of that. But yeah, not a brain tumor book as yet. TED Talk
Yeah,
though. I'm
well, I
ready for
suppose
TED Talk.
yeah, I think a TED Talk, but also, books are and when you don't have a budget for a course, books are
Mhm.
amazing. And
Yeah.
there are so many books out there. And I'm like you, I have 2 book lists. I have the Joy Book Club, so people can download all of the books that I read to sort of shift my mindset. And then I have a money mindset list that's part of our money mindset masterclass. And these were like the top books that helped me
Mhm.
shift my money mindset. And then I added to it a list of books written by women who've built
Mhm.
successful businesses, because I think it's so important that we have examples in money mindset of women. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot of books out there. I realized all the money mindset books I read were all written by men. And I thought, okay, I got to go find some women who've built
Mm.
successful businesses and pull out their mindset tips from there as well. So,
Yeah.
what are your top 3 books?
Oh God, I did a LinkedIn post of my top 33 books of
Oh,
all
good. Well, we're
time.
going to put that into the show notes.
you know, which is there. But I've just finished reading 10x is easier than 2x. By oh God, what's his name? Why does his name escape my head? I've literally got the book here, and it's brilliant. 10x is, and it's that whole thing of like living life large. It's so much easier to, as they say, like the top. The top is lonely. At the top is lonely because everybody's like down here, like working on that, the 80% of your life that doesn't actually bring out your greatness. But if
It's
you think, oh,
Dan
yeah,
Sullivan.
yes, that's the one. Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, that's the one. But that is a brilliant book. Really kind of inspired me to kind of, again, go large, go big. That whole, like, what can we, and this is one of the things that really amazes me each and every time. And again, if we go back to the recovery, it's like, what are we capable of as human beings? They always say that we only use about 5% of our brain. The average human uses 5%. It's like, how much more are we capable of that we are not doing, that we are not using? So I posted today about this quote I heard from Olga Kubot, this gymnast, Belarusian gymnast, who's talking about this whole idea of conquering yourself is the one of the greatest gifts that sports can give you. And I realized that I'm on this quest to like conquer myself. I constantly want to be a better version of myself. How can I be a better Mildred today than I was yesterday? What can I do to really kind of live life large? And life is not promised to any of us. You know, we could wake up tomorrow with a pain that turns into brain tumor, and then what? Those things that you've been putting off for years and years and years, when are you going to get around to doing it? Now is the time to live large. So, yeah. Anyway, that's not what the book says. That's my version of the book.
That's your book.
Yeah,
That's your book.
that's my book.
But it's so true. I agree with that. I mean, I remember I learned that lesson. I used to go around chasing all these. I used to run a blog in a local community where I lived in Switzerland. And I used to go around chasing all these small business owners to pay 120 francs a year to be part, to be listed on the directory. And then
Mhm.
I had a big bank that came in and gave us, I think it was like 5,000 francs for the year or 3,000 francs for the year. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was like the same amount of effort.
Mhm.
I mean, it was way less effort to get
Yeah.
way more money. It was in the sense that once I had the meeting with the person and I had a good meeting with the person, then they funded us right away. Whereas, I to make the same amount of money chasing after the
Mm.
small fry was, and it actually meant that we could provide free listings on our website that were
Yeah.
unbiased. Because it wasn't based on people who were paying, because we had bigger people paying, and
Mm.
that made a huge difference. It made a huge difference. So I think it's true, but also why would we're part of this ever expanding universe that's
Mm.
never it never stopped. It's always expanding. There's parts of the universe we haven't even discovered yet. And
Yeah.
so why would we think that we're part of that? Why wouldn't we want to ever expand? I mean, we want to do it responsibly, where we take care of the planet that we're on, but
Mhm.
it's normal and natural for us to want to expand. And I love that you shared that. All
Yeah.
right. Well, I've put the link. Anyone who's watching
Oh, you
the
found it
live,
already.
yeah, I found it. I found It's called My 33 Books of All Time.
Mm.
I love that. So I've found that. I've dropped that in, and then I've also dropped in the Joy Book Club, which is techpixies.com/Joy Book Club, and then we will also the Money Mindset Masterclass at TechPixies is techpixies.com/Money Mindset. Now, Mildred, you run courses, so tell people how they can tell people about them and how they can find out about how to join. You were just launching the courses the last time I interviewed you. So, how many
Yeah.
students have you worked with by now?
Oh God, there's lots. So funny what you said about the bank versus the individuals chasing around. And this is so what I do is I focus on working with less women for more impact, and also for more income because it allows me to go deeper, and this is why at the moment, because I've got some really crucial goals that I'm doing for my business for the rest of this year. I'm changing systems, kind of like a restructure that you went through. So all I'm offering at the moment is just what I call my VIP day. So this is a one-to-one coaching experience where I kind of help you to build a visible and profitable business on LinkedIn and build your personal brand in the process, whether it's for your career or your business. So that is at the moment the only thing that I'm offering time up for, because I'm really kind of in this focused 10x mode of working, putting all these foundations in place for my business for where I want to go to next. But that said, I do have online courses that if anyone is interested in to do like a self-paced course. My 8 weeks to visible program takes you through the journey of building your personal brand on LinkedIn over a period of 8 weeks. You can find out more about that on my website, startbeinvisible.com/8 weeks. And if you want to get in touch with me about coaching, you can reach me via LinkedIn. You can also go to my website, mildredtalabi.com. But because I live on LinkedIn, LinkedIn
Yeah, if you
is
connect
where
with Mildred, you're going to see her all the time.
yeah, so reach out to me via LinkedIn. Let me know that you heard me on Joy's Tech Pixies podcast. And then, yeah, we can have a conversation to see if you're a good fit for us to work together.
Well, I think I hope a lot of tech pixies do reach out to you. They're lovely, amazing, positive people, and they do have great impact to bring to the world. Well, thank you for your time today. I am so grateful that I caught you on a Tuesday and not on a Wednesday. And yeah, and we'll stay in touch. And thanks again for coming on. You're so inspirational, and you have a new podcast coming out as well. So, how do people find you? When's your first episode releasing?
It's going to be out. The first episode will be out on Wednesday, the 4th of October. So, yes, next month we're going live. It's called Start Being Visible. That's what the podcast is. So, I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to bringing it to the whole world very soon.
All right. Well, let us know when it's out into the world. And thanks again.
Thank you, Joy.
All right, that was amazing. I absolutely love getting to interview extraordinary women, and Mildred Talabi is no exception. One thing that I think is really important to highlight, one of the things we teach at TechPixies is you do one good piece of content every week, and of course, it gets better the more you do that. What Mildred does so well is she shows up every day. Let me just tell you, if you're listening to this podcast because you like social media and we teach social media, if you want to go big, I love interviewing people like Mildred. She wants to go big. There are more advanced steps and techniques to social media, which do include posting every single day. And I'm not against it. I think it's great. I think it's just a path I've chosen not to do. But I do think once you've got the foundations of social media, you can do that. When I interviewed Dr. Vanita Ratan about TikTok, that's exactly what she did. She gamed the system. She learned how to game the system. And what I will say is when you've got confidence being visible on social media, it's so much easier to then do the more advanced stuff. You're never going to be able to do the advanced stuff on social media if you don't have the baseline, like how does this work? How do I post this? How do I make this happen? So you need to start there. And then if you want to go big, there's opportunities to go big with social media. And Mildred's just shown us that. But I also think it's important to reflect on the extraordinary a comeback that can occur when something happens in your life that you were not expecting, right? Things that you may not have preferred happen in your life, and you may not have been expecting them. So, how you deal with that, how you come back from that, how you see the good in that. This was an extraordinary podcast in that to that effect. So, we're going to be bringing to you next week a very inspirational podcast. A woman who wrote a book called Wave Walker. I've got it just behind me. Let me grab it. It's Breaking Free by Suzanne Haywood. We did a private interview with her with our Monday Mindset group at TechPixies. It was very special and it was very intimate. And thankfully, she has allowed us to put that onto the podcast. So I just wanted to precursor you that that's coming in case you wanted to get the book and read through the book before you listen to the podcast. Breaking Free, there'll be an opportunity to win this book and several of the other books that we talk about on our podcast in the coming weeks. So make sure you're following us on social. That's at TechPixies on pretty much every single network. And there'll be an opportunity to find out how to win some of the amazing books from some of the amazing people that we do interview. And if you think we should interview someone, it's very rare that I bring someone on that's not a student of TechPixies, didn't go through TechPixies. Mildred is not a student of TechPixies, but our paths have crossed through social media. So if you have someone that you think we should interview that's got an extraordinary story or a gift that they have brought to the world that makes has made your life better, let us know, because I'm very picky about who comes on the podcast. But I do like to vet people and make sure that they're people that our community would benefit from. So thanks for listening. Have a great week, and I hope you were inspired.